Welcome to the latest episode of Five on the Floor on the Five Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app on Apple Podcasts, on Android, Spotify, or the Five Reasons YouTube channel. Also, subscribe to Off the Floor. That's our Discord server, $2.99 per month. Link right here in the description. You can bypass the Apple upcharge by clicking on it. Sign up for $2.99. You can cancel at any time. Get access to 10 different channels, including our draft channel. So if you're interested in that, our guys Adele and Matt do a terrific job on that. Also, check out the host updates. You get the most heat, information, conversation, and consternation. Maybe not so much consternation lately, but check it out. It's Off the Floor. Also, check out the great sponsors of the Five Reasons Sports Network. Includes our friends over at Prize Picks. Use the code 5 FIVE. Put down $5. You get $50 to play right away. PrizePicks.com, the official fantasy partner of the Five Reasons Sports Network. It is legal in the state of Florida. You can play across the sports spectrum. They added flex plays back. They added up to 6 players together back. So everything that you used to be able to do on Prize Picks, you pretty much can do. And again, you can do it and get $50 to play right away. So check it out. It's PrizePicks.com or the Google Play Store, the Apple App Store, but make sure you use the code 5. And now, today's episode.
Mercy, luxurious, Heat Nation, yeah, Mercy and Lago, down to Biscayne, yay, 5 on the floor. Ride for my dogs, where here's the thing, you can check the score, hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frauds, down to Biscayne, kept the flow playing, got it all banned, y'all seen the block, stop with one hand, and Pat we trust, it's about have the guts, we're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to Five on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the Five Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome back to Five on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick and at Five Reasons Sports. We got our guy Eternal Bast. You can follow him at Eternal Bast. He's a host on our Discord channel, Off the Floor, as well as on Playback. He's more of a moderator on Discord to make sure everything goes to its proper place. So today, we're going to talk about where the Heat's proper place is going to be at the end of the season. And this is not exactly where we thought it might be a few days ago, although, yes, it is. They really haven't moved. They're in the 10 spot. We said they weren't going to be able to drop to 11. Toronto wasn't trying hard enough. So they were going to be stuck in the play-in. They can't move up to 6. We knew that. So this was basically, okay, you're going to be where you are. It's just a question of whether or not you're home or not and how many play-in games you might have to play. So for those who are not familiar, 7 plays 8, 9 plays 10. The loser of the 7-8, of course, the home team for those games is the team with the better record, so 7 and 9. The loser of the 7-8 game plays the winner of the 9-10 game. The loser of the 9-10 game is eliminated, and after that other game is played, one other team gets to play the 1 seed, which would be the Cleveland Cavaliers this year, basically, and the other team is eliminated. So one of the teams is going to play the Cavs, one of the teams is going to play the Celtics. And again, Heat fans have this other issue where some don't really want to make the playoffs because they want to keep their pick. We're going to keep that for another day. We're kind of doing one pot on the draft and one pot on this season. That's pretty much how we've been going of late. Eternal, before we go forward on this, let me just ask you this general question. Do you like the play-in? Do you think it's a good idea by the NBA? And is it playing out this year the way it should?
I think it depends on whatever is going on with you that season. Right. Because I think for teams that are quote unquote trying to get better draft position, they probably hate the play. But at the same time, like I guess from an executive standpoint, it's a blessing and a curse, right? Like for drafting and projection and future installments, like it's not something you're really excited about, but for the business side, you get money by hosting a game. Whether you move forward or not, you get money. So I guess from my personal standpoint, I mean, this particular season for the Heat, it's a curse. Right? They've been having a bizarro season. After losing 10 games, they won 4 straight. Which, if you look at the, let's see, I know we said last Saturday Toronto wouldn't catch them,
Right.
but Miami is 33-41. Toronto is 27-47. If Miami lost those 4 games, so if it was instead of 14-game losing streak, they are much closer to Toronto right now than they would have. So they probably would have fell out of the play-in. But again, if you didn't have to play in it, in general, they're not even in the conversation for the playoffs. They would be fighting for the 8 seed. But yeah, here we are.
Well, here we are, and let me go through the remaining schedule here for the Heat, and then we're going to talk about the remaining schedules for the other teams. I know you've gone through the tiebreaker and how this might play out. Again, the Heat right now still are in the 10. Chicago's not really losing of late. I'm looking at, they had the win against the Lakers. Buzelis has played really well, their first-round pick. Of late, Kobe White's been on a tear. They got rid of Levine, and they played better without Zach Levine. Sacramento's playing worse with Zach Levine. That seems to happen all the time, even if he's a more efficient player than he used to be. But here's the Heat's remaining schedule. It does tighten up here a little bit. They are in Washington first to close out March. That has to be a win if you care about actually making, moving up in the plan. Boston on the road on the on the second. Now the only thing I'll say about that is the Celtics have been kind of intermittently resting guys. They are in the 2 spot. They can't really move. Well, they can't move. And so they're kind of playing 2 and not playing 2 of their top 4 players of late. And so you don't really know who's going to go for them. Again, tough challenge, though. Memphis at home. I know you know that team well. John Morant is back. The coach has been changed. You don't know where the motivation is going to be there, whether it's going to be very high or very low. Then Milwaukee here, Dame, the blood clot issue. Milwaukee's getting scorched tonight by Orlando. We'll talk about that. The Bucks look like they may be back in free fall. And then Philadelphia at home. So you're talking about these games. Washington should be a win. Boston, you would expect a loss, but not necessarily. Memphis at home. Milwaukee at home. Can you get one of those 2? So maybe you're 2-2. Then you host Philadelphia. You should be 3-2. They're tanking. They're not playing anybody. We just saw that. Can you be 3-2 prior to that game against Chicago? And then you go to Chicago, you go to New Orleans and Washington. Now, those two teams are tanking. They're trying to make sure they get a top 4 pick. So, I mean, really, if you went 3-2, if you got the Chicago game, you're 4-2, you should be 6-2. That would leave you 39-43. I mean, not the kind of record that the Heat typically have, but would put you within striking distance. Let me ask you before we go forward on this. Do you think that's conceivable? Could they go 6-2 to finish? I was looking for wins a few days ago, and they came up with 4. Can they win 6 more, 6 of 8? Considering the schedule is not real tough.
Mm-hmm. First off, to be a proper teammate, Atlanta is who is blasting the Bucks.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's Atlanta. I knew it was one of the playing teams. Atlanta's blasting. That's right.
Let's see. Let's go back to the. I think I'm trying to pull the schedule back up because I got the standings up right now. Hold on. Let me see. Miami Heat schedules. Let's see here. All right, here we go. So their next game is against Washington. I think it's hard, Ethan. It's hard to really say what they're going to do because we literally sat here last week and looked at the schedule and said, I don't know if they win another game because of how they were playing on the court. And so based off what we've seen from them recently, they've been hot from 3, right? Tyler has came out of his slump and has been playing well, getting some efficient baskets, still some stuff there you would like to see him clean up, but he's been playing well. You've been getting some production out of guys. Alec Burks has emerged in the absence of Duncan. Don't know when Duncan is going to be back. He will also be getting Nico back at some point this week. His own court, training has picked up. So I mean, like you said before, the Celtics have kind of been resting some guys. So let's look at this week right here. They got the Wizards, Celtics, Grizzlies, Bucks. I think they can split that. I can see them going 2-2. Your mic is muted.
Sorry. Yeah, that's what I was saying. I think they could go 2-2, and if they went 2-2, then that leaves them here with this Philadelphia game. Which, I mean, you have if you're going anywhere, you got to win that game. We just again the Sixers are not trying right now, so that leaves you with that Philadelphia game, which again you would assume to be a win, and so that puts you at 5-2. And then you start to think about it. I mean, it just feels like, at least for the 9-10 game, and I want to go through Chicago's schedule first before we kind of get into a little bit more of the pipe dreamy situation on whether or not they could advance beyond that. But it does seem like, in a lot of ways, the 9-10 game is going to come down to that game in Chicago on the 9th, right? I mean, that's what it's looking like. I mean, they've lost to Chicago twice, too, right? So you have the tiebreaker. What is that? Is that 2-1 they're down in that one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So they're down 2-1. All right. So to win that one, I don't know exactly what the tiebreak is. Beyond the two, I don't know if it's conference record. I guess that's something we probably should have checked before the show. But but it does seem like
Oh, they're actually tied. They're 2-2.
Okay, so they're tied 2-2. Well, no, how is that possible? Because
No. My bad. It's 2-1. It's 2-1.
Okay, yeah, I didn't think so, because unless they had played them in extra time, because sometimes you get that extra game now in that silly in-season tournament. Does anybody remember who won that? I can't remember at this point. That's another of these gimmicks, which actually, in my view, is much worse than the play-in, but it's another of those gimmicks. All right, so let's look. Do you have Chicago's schedule up? Let me call that one up
Hold on,
here,
I got
because all right, because I believe that a 6-2 finish for the Heat
Chicago.
is reasonable, which is, again, crazy considering that I thought they wouldn't win another game. Or not to say they wouldn't win another game, but I thought it'd be difficult. All right, let's go through the Bulls schedule. So tomorrow they're at the Thunder, assume a loss, right? Provided that, I mean, OKC is so far ahead of everybody, but it doesn't seem to matter. They're still playing enough guys to win. The Raptors at home, Raptors not really trying. The Blazers seem to be trying late in the season, and they've been better. Then they go to the Horn, but then see, here's the problem. They've got they play the Hornets, but then they get the Cavs. Okay. So I'm looking at this and I'm saying, well, you should have a loss at the Thunder. And unless the Cavaliers don't play anybody, and the Cavs, I know they've lost a couple games recently that people don't expect them to lose, but you figure they could lose to the Cavs there. So they should have a couple losses going into that, which I would think the Heat should not have more. So it does seem like that Heat Bulls game would be for everything, because if you look at it, the Bulls finished with the Wizards and the Sixers. So I don't really see a scenario where the Heat losing to the Bulls and then pulling it out afterwards is going to be likely, because, again, the Wizards and the Sixers are sitting on the Bulls' schedule. To me, the 9-10 game is coming down to that one game, right? Is that fair? If I was to put money on that, would I probably be right?
More than likely. Now I will say the Bulls have beaten some pretty good teams lately. They beat the Lakers. They beat the Nuggets. They beat the Lakers again. Who else have they beaten? They took the Rockets. They beat the Pacers. Beat the Magic. Yeah, so I mean they've gotten some quality wins here and there, but not a lot like the Pistons, but they've gotten some quality wins here and there. I wouldn't necessarily rule out that they probably create a little bit of separation. Obviously, you have the Hawks who just beat the Bucks, but the Bucks aren't. I think the Bucks are kind of falling, but that's a conversation for another day. I do think it comes down to that last game a little bit.
So, and again, if it comes down to that last game, that game is in Chicago. That's the one concern here. Well, there's a lot of concerns. They haven't played very well against the Bulls typically, but
they haven't played well on the road, period.
No, and that's the thing. See, there's a macro thing and a micro thing here, right? Like, the macro is this Heat team hasn't been very good this year, okay? So if we're just to consider that, you're like, all right, well, they shouldn't really have a chance in any of this. But now they've decided to get scrappy, and they found a rotation towards the end of the season, and Spoelstra's not playing guys who were actively, not intentionally, but were hurting the team, like Hawkes and Rozier. We saw him play Larson over Hawkes yesterday. Rozier has talked openly now about how he knows he doesn't have what the Heat need at the moment. He's just trying to fit the best he can and try to work his way back into Spo's good graces. So, and Duncan has been replaced by Burks. Now, he doesn't do exactly the same thing as Burks, but he's actually been Burke says do the same thing as Duncan, but he's actually been more accurate in what he does this season. He doesn't have some of the creation elements that Duncan has or the chemistry with Bam, but he's money from the corner, and they've needed that, and they're shooting at an insane rate. Look, if they shoot like this, any team shoots like this, they can beat anybody. Right. If they're defending, which they have been a little bit more of late. All right, we're going to get into Atlanta, and so I think we agree. This for 9-10, it comes down to the Bulls and Heat game, which is coming up on the 9th of Chicago. Maybe I'll go up to that one, but the question is, can they actually move up to 7 or 8? And we'll get to that in a second. Before we do, I want to tell you about All Pro Construction Builders. You can find them at allproconstructionbuilders.com or All Pro Construction Builders on Instagram, 305-484-4429. It is always hurricane season around here. Make sure that your home is protected, your business. Make sure it's protected before it gets too close to time. You don't want to get back of the list or anything like that. Be scrambling. Get with these people today. Danny and his family, they do a great job. They use the best products. It's a locally owned business, huge Miami Heat fans, and they'll give you 5.5% off your entire order if you mention 5 reasons. That's in addition to the free estimate. So just get an estimate. You got nothing to lose. And if you want to do an order, just say, hey, 5 on the floor, 5 reasons. 305 guys, they sponsor us there as well. Check it out. It's 305-484-4429, allproconstructionbuilders.com. All right. As of right now, Eternal, you mentioned the Hawks are winning, right? So where will they be in the standings relative to the Heat?
I think tonight's win, if it has updated, let me see if it updated it. It has not yet, but they will be 36 and 38.
Okay. So 36 and 38. And we're looking now at let's see, the Heat right now are what, 33 and 39, is that right? Or 33 and 41 or 35 and 31?
I think 36 and 38 will put them above the Magic, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. So essentially, let me take a look at it. Oh, sorry. We got sidetracked here. All right, so let me look. We are looking at the East right now. And right now, the Bucks are in 6. They're not going to lose that spot even without Dame, but it doesn't look like they're going to move up. It's pretty clear that we're going to see a Knicks-Bucks first-round series and probably an Indiana-Detroit series, which is going to go straight to NBA TV or maybe the Cooking Channel. The Magic are 7 right now, 36 and 39. And you're right, the Hawks will actually pass them into 7 at 36 and 38. So the Hawks winning puts the Heat a full 3 games behind them, 2.5 behind the Magic. So they do need some stumbling here down the stretch. So let's go through Orlando's schedule again. If this is what they want, which I know a lot of Heat fans do not want this. Tomorrow, the Magic host the Clippers. Then they go to San Antonio, which has played better without its core players than we thought they might. Then they play the Wizards also. The Wizards are going to have a lot to say about all this, but I don't know how much they can actually say. Then they're at the Pelicans. There's a Hawks Magic game on the 8th where one of them has to lose, but one of them is going to win. But the Heat only really, if you're trying to get to 8, then you really only care about one of them losing, ideally the one that's behind the other at the time. Then they host the Celtics, who likely really don't need the game. They already don't need the game. At the Pacers, who might be in a scramble for home court in the first round. They're only a game up on Detroit, so you figure they would try that game. And then the Magic play the Hawks again. So I guess if you're the Heat, and we'll look at the Hawks schedule in a second, and you're trying to get up to 8, you win your games, right? You win your game, because the reason you want to 8 is because, again, if you're trying to make the playoffs, it gives you 2 chances, right? If you lose the 7-8 game, then the worst case scenario, you play another game. We've seen the Heat advance to the playoffs like that before. But I guess what you want is whichever team is trailing the other team, the Magic or the Hawks, they lose both those games in the Magic-Hawks matchups and bring those teams closer back to the Heat. Let me get to the Hawks schedule real quick here, and then we'll close this with your thoughts on whether or not this is actually doable. So the Hawks we mentioned are winning tonight. That puts them ahead of the Magic. They host the Blazers. They're at the Mavericks, who've been kind of scrappy even with no players. AD is back. They host the Knicks, seem to be locked into a spot. They host the Jazz, and then we mentioned they're at the Magic. They go to the Nets, who have nothing to play for. They go to the Sixers, who have nothing to play for, and then they have the other game against the Magic. If I was to say to you right now, which of those 2 teams, the Hawks or Magic, is more likely to drop in a position where the Heat can catch them? Which is it?
Ooh. Man, I don't know. That's kind of hard. I would say probably the Magic, right? they've been kind of stumbling. They started off the season really strong, and then they had the injuries with Paulo, then eventually Franz, and then you had Jalen Suggs. Then they got Paulo back, and then they got Franz back, but they haven't returned to where I thought they were going to return. And then obviously the Hawks have just been playing well over the last 10 games. So if I had to, be a betting man, which I'm not, unlike you degenerates, I would say Orlando is probably the one to continue stumbling.
Okay. I mean, if you're the Heat, should this be the goal? I guess it's a larger.
We know they ain't trying to lose. They're not trying to lose. So
they're not. Well, fans are going to say it shouldn't be the goal. But if you're the Heat, right, it's pretty obvious. You want to get to 8. A 7's not going to happen because you're not going to get both the Hawks and Magic to drop so far
unless they go on an 8 game.
2 games left against each other.
Unless they win out. Unless the Heat win out, then.
Even so, I just think it's too much because there's too many Washingtons and Philadelphians on all these schedules, right? Too many Washingtons, Philadelphias, New Orleanses, and Utahs. There's a lot of bad teams on these schedules, and a lot of the other teams are locked in. The issue is these East teams are not playing the top teams in the West, who are, with the exception of OKC, jostling for position. You have this kind of 2 through 7 or 8 that's really tight in the West. But none of those teams are on these schedules. Those are the teams that are going to be playing players. The other teams are not. And so that's why it looks to me like I think, okay, and again, I'm the one who said they might not win another game. But I think the 8 could be there for them if they go 6-2. I think if they go 6-2, the 8 could be there for them at 39-43. We're going to start lamenting games from earlier in the season. Again, if we care about them making the playoffs, like the timeout that was called in Detroit, like all the other games that were wasted with Jimmy not caring, like the game against Utah, like the blown leads, we're going to have a conversation on all those. But the fact that they're actually in this position and they've kind of found a rotation right now, look, Cleveland's not scared of them. They're not scared of any of these teams, I wouldn't think. But Miami might be able to make at least a representative effort if they get there. And then Heat fans are going to wring their hands because they're going to be like, we just wish we had the draft pick. I'll let you close it here. What seed do they end up with?
Against my best wishes, in my not best wishes, against my best thoughts, I think Miami ends up 8 seed. Wow. I think like through some like black magic, they somehow end up in the 8th seed. And
he's been saving Pelle Larsson for exactly this moment. I think they're 9. I think they're going to be 9. I think they'll figure out a way to win that Chicago game. I know that's going to sound crazy because I thought they'd figure out a way to win the Indiana game last year, which would have changed everything. But I think they're 9. I think the team's going to be much more bunched up than they are right now, again, because of Orlando and Atlanta playing each other twice. But I think they're 9, and then I could absolutely see them losing the home game to the Bulls after beating them on the road. I could see them winning 2 games and then pushing Cleveland to 6.
I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. They are going to get to the 8th seed. They're going to somehow beat Atlanta, and then welcome to another Boston Celtics and Miami Heat. First round.
No, I don't think they can get to 7. I do not think they can get to 7.
No, I'm saying if they get to the 8 seed, it's 7 and 8 that play each other. I'm saying what?
Then 8 beats 7 and gets stuck with Boston again. Oh my God, I do not. I'm not taking that trip. I'm just telling you that one. And Cleveland, I spent enough time in my life there. All right, Eternal, we appreciate it. Check them out on the Discord server. Subscribe to Off the Floor. Also subscribe to Prize Picks. Use the code 5. All Pro Construction Builders. We'll have more episodes coming up this week. We're going to be doubling up on some episodes. We know this is not the season you wanted, but we're still working. Have a good day, everybody.